What started as a private disagreement behind palace doors has now spilled into public view, revealing a deep fracture at the highest levels of leadership. The Labour government is now facing its biggest crisis yet, as the growing tension between Starmer and King Charles over Ukraine policy threatens to upend British politics.
King Charles has finally broken his silence on Starmer's attack on the House of Lords. In a shocking display of royal assertiveness, the monarch has expressed discomfort.
A political crisis is brewing between Prime Minister Keir Starmer and King Charles, putting both the British government and the monarchy in uncharted territory. At the heart of the conflict is Ukraine policy. King Charles is pushing for a ceasefire to maintain good relations with President Trump, and rare royal intervention has sent shockwaves through Westminster, as the monarchy typically stays out of direct political disputes. With tensions escalating and public opinion shifting rapidly, many are questioning whether this clash could spiral into a full-blown constitutional crisis, while Starmer refuses to budge from his firm stance against Russia.
Sir Keir Starmer, Your Majesty.
Your Majesty.
You must be utterly exhausted and nearly on your knees. Not actually. Quite a grueling.
With Labour's plan to abolish hereditary peers, a move that threatens the constitutional balance Britain has maintained for centuries. What's really happening behind closed doors at Buckingham Palace? With Labour's approval ratings collapsing to a mere 17%, this royal clash could be the final blow to Starmer's already crumbling authority. The consequences for Britain's political landscape are more significant than you might think. Before we move on, I'd like to ask you a small favour. If you appreciate this content, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch the videos without subscribing. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us. So did you click the subscribe button? Great, thank you so much. Now back to the video. What's happening behind the palace walls is far more serious than the media's portrayal.
Could this unprecedented standoff threaten Starmer's already fragile grip on power? And what's driving his resistance to Trump's demand?
25% tariffs on foreign steel and aluminum imports kicked in today.
Of mere discomfort, King Charles finds himself at the centre of a constitutional earthquake, as Starmer's government pushes forward with reforms that threaten the very fabric of Britain's governing system. For centuries, the monarchy has served as a stabilising force above the fray of partisan politics, a delicate balance now under direct assault. The British Constitution isn't written on paper, but etched into centuries of tradition and precedent. This is precisely what makes Starmer's agenda so dangerous. His plan to abolish hereditary peers isn't simply modernisation, it's a fundamental power grab disguised as progressive reform. Constitutional experts have already sounded the alarm, warning that removing these hereditary elements systematically dismantles crucial checks on prime ministerial power. Imagine the position King Charles has been forced into, reading aloud a speech outlining policies that directly undermine the institution he represents and has sworn to protect. The humiliation is palpable, but the implications run deeper. If hereditary peers can be swept away with the stroke of a pen, what prevents the same logic from being applied to a hereditary monarchy? The precedent being established here should trouble anyone concerned with Britain's constitutional stability. The palace isn't taking this lying down, though they must navigate these troubled waters with extreme caution. Sources close to Buckingham Palace reveal that King Charles has expressed his deepest affection for Canada, a statement that, while seemingly innocuous, carries significant weight when examined in context. This carefully worded message arrives precisely as Starmer pushes forward his controversial reforms, suggesting the king isn't nearly as politically neutral as convention demands. The timing here is crucial. Charles's apparent tribute to Canada coincides directly with Starmer's most aggressive constitutional manoeuvres. Few in the mainstream media have recognised this subtle royal rebuke, but within political circles the message is being received loud and clear. The monarch is signalling concern without explicitly crossing the line into political interference. A delicate balancing act indeed. The tension between Buckingham Palace and Downing Street is approaching a breaking point. We're witnessing more than a disagreement between a king and his prime minister. This is a fundamental clash between Britain's traditional governing structures and Starmer's attempt to consolidate power in ways that reshape the nation's political landscape. This constitutional power struggle isn't happening in a vacuum. It's coinciding with a collapse in Labour's public support that few political analysts predicted. Just 17% of the British public believe Starmer's government is doing a good job. Let that sink in. A party that swept into power with grand promises of change and renewal has managed to alienate voters so comprehensively that their approval rating resembles something you'd expect from a government in its death throes. not its opening act. Starmer's political miscalculation has been catastrophic. He believed that modernising British institutions would cement his legacy as a bold reformer. Instead, it's exposed him as woefully out of touch with what actually matters to ordinary Britons. While he obsesses over constitutional tinkering, families across the UK are struggling with a devastating cost of living crisis. Inflation is eating away at savings, energy bills continue to soar, and the government's response has been pathetically inadequate. The contrast between Starmer's promises and his actions couldn't be more stark. Remember his pledge to be the voice of working people? Those same working people are now watching in disbelief as their supposed champion wages war on British traditions while their bank accounts dwindle. This pattern of betrayal extends far beyond his royal clash. It's becoming his defining characteristic. Within Labour's ranks, the panic is palpable. MPs who once enthusiastically supported their leader are now conspicuously quiet, distancing themselves from Starmer's sinking ship. Westminster corridors buzz with whispers of potential challenges waiting in the wings. Nobody wants to be associated with a leader whose personal approval rating has crashed to an astonishing -30, making him less popular than Prince Andrew, a truly remarkable achievement for all the wrong reasons. The symbols of Labour's delusion are everywhere. Take Angela Rayner's behaviour at recent royal events, waving inappropriately to crowds who came to see the king, not her. It perfectly encapsulates a government that fundamentally misunderstands its relationship with the public. As traditional Labour supporters feel increasingly betrayed, Nigel Farage's Reform UK is capitalising on the chaos. How about this for a number? Farage recently pointed out just 17% of the public think that this Labour government are doing a good job. The Prime Minister's personal poll ratings have fallen to -30. By positioning Reform as defenders of British traditions and values, Farage is offering a home to voters who feel abandoned by Starmer's radical agenda. Make no mistake, this royal disagreement isn't merely a footnote in British political history. Looking back through centuries of monarchy-government tensions, we've seen how such conflicts often become catalysts for profound political transformation. What we're witnessing now between King Charles and Starmer could very well reshape Britain's political foundations for decades. Constitutional experts warn this tension between Crown and Labour carries implications far beyond today's headlines. The monarchy's subtle resistance signals a deeper institutional concern that transcends partisan politics. As this constitutional drama unfolds, the question looms: will Labour's identity survive Starmer's leadership? The British public, traditionally protective of their institutions, are watching closely. This isn't simply about one government's policies failing, it's about whether the delicate balance between tradition and progress that has defined Britain for centuries can withstand the current strain. History suggests these moments of constitutional friction often precede significant political realignment. We may be witnessing exactly that.